All right, gang. Hopefully everyone's doing great today. Can you hear me? Heard someone ask even if I was on the call. So actually, I think we've already muted you, haven't we, Jason? All right, I got Jason here as my AV specialist, making sure we're doing this right. But hey, I'm excited to be with you guys and excited to spend some time together. Is it working?
Should be. Facebook isn't. Oh, the Facebook is. Okay.
We're just double checking the Facebook Live, so if you want to jump on that. But I'm just sitting here actually at my desk here in Salt Lake City and looking forward to the time that we're going to be able to spend together. And, I was reflecting on the things that I would like to talk to you about today, and I was thinking, this is an interesting business. It's a business that we often focus on and that we look at from the standpoint of lots of factors to either make us successful or not so successful. And my observation is very quickly is that there are groups of individuals, there are people in so many words who love to play what I call the blame game. They love to blame others for the challenges that they have. They love to blame others for the difficulties that they're having. And the challenge with that is that as you do that, you lose all of the power and the strength that each of you have individually. So the thing that I want you to think about very clearly is, have you gotten yourself into a position where you are personally blaming others for your misfortune? Are you blaming circumstances for the difficulties that you have? And it's not that we don't want to be compassionate. The challenge is that you could be absolutely 100% justified in all of the challenges that you have. But the challenge is that even though you're right in the blaming of the challenge or the challenges that are there, the fact is it doesn't change anything. The only way in which you will fix something, change something, evolve to a better situation is if you individually take personal responsibility. So for each one of us individually, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly taking the responsibility that's necessary for each one of us? So as we do so, the good news is this, is that the awareness of this is almost the entire ingredient. If we become aware that we're blaming, that we're casting our circumstances upon other individuals, other people, other situations, the company, our broker, you name it, our spouse, our family, our friends, the economy, the world, whatever we may be blaming, we need to stop that right now and take a step back and be responsible, because that's where the power of change can occur. So, I was reflecting today, 24 years ago, I had the opportunity to spend some time with some pretty extraordinary leadership in this industry. And let me give you a perspective. This lady had been in the business for, I think at this point, nearly 20 years. She's at this point a 40 plus year veteran of the industry of real estate sales. And when I first got my license, I was about 22 years old, and I worked in an office where I watched a lady who did extraordinary things with her business. And I watched her from afar. But then actually as time went on, because I was working hard, she was working hard, we found ourselves in competitive situations where it was a real challenge. Now this wonderful lady's name was, and many of you will know her, if you're in the Utah market, you will know her, and her name is Joan Pate. And Joan is an absolute rock star of this industry and has really set a precedent for what this business can be and the life that you can have from it. When I met Joan in 1994, I believe it was, that was the first year that she sold 365 homes, and she literally sold a home every single day. Yes, she had a small team. She had a couple of assistants and a couple of buyer's agents, but she was a prospecting machine. And what I learned early on by observing her is that as I watched her be one of the first people into the office. I watched her because I watched her also be one of the last people in the office. And as we got to become friends, there would be times where she'd say, hey, you should come onto my team. And I kind of resisted that, wanted to do my own thing, but we became dear friends. And in that time frame, what I began to understand was that there was a recipe for success. In fact, I often like to think of it as if you were making a batch of chocolate chip cookies, you would simply follow that recipe, and if you followed the recipe to perfection, boy, you would have a great cookie. If you miss something like the baking soda or powder or the flour or the sugar or the eggs, if you miss something, well, then you know that the recipe didn't turn out so well and the cookies weren't that good. It's the same principle when it comes to this business that we're in. So as you start looking at this business and recognizing that it's not an exclusive club, success is not for just one person or just for a few. You have to simply follow the recipe, and if you follow the recipe, it all works out. So as I observed Joan over those many years, and still today she sells real estate. I mean, get this, even in her slowing, if you would say, and not maybe doing as much business, she still does well over 100 plus transactions a year and is still an icon of the industry. But what I learned from her was this, and that is that I found myself in a position where I was failing consistently in the business. Now, look, if you want to learn, you have to fail, right? If you want to succeed, you have to fail first to know how to do this. So there was a tremendous amount of failure that was going on. I would go on appointments and I wouldn't take the listing. I would take out buyers and the buyers wouldn't go under contract. I would prospect, I wouldn't set appointments. And I was beside myself one day where I just said, man, can I even do this? Can I get to the next levels? And I was doing enough business where I was succeeding, meaning I was paying the bills, but I wanted to do so much more in this business. And so what I did is I sat down and I took a little sticky note, and this true story, I still have these sticky notes today. And I asked this question: what do top producers do? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because who I was thinking about at that time was Joan. I mean, Joan was selling 300 plus homes a year. She was working her tail. She was a prospecting maniac. She was making sure she was doing her job on a daily basis. And I said, okay, now if she's a top producer, what does she do? And so on this little sticky note, I wrote down these things. Now, as time has gone on, I want you to know that I've refined this process. I've refined, if you would say, even this message. But for some of you who will have hear this, it's not necessarily a new message, but what it is it's a message that rings true no matter how long you've been in the business, how short you've been in the business. It is a true, and accurate message from that standpoint. So, with that being said, let me just bring up the first thing that I wrote. I said, this is what top producers do. Number one is they have a purpose. And what I found as I watched Joan is that Joan drove her life with a deep sense of purpose. She knew why she was doing what she was doing. She was driven internally that when it was difficult, when it was hard, when she got the call reluctance, when the fear was setting in, when the challenges were coming up, she took a step back, and I can guarantee you what she did. She looked at the reasons why she was doing what she was doing. And look, I'm a firm believer that those who drive their life with a deep sense of purpose, when the fear comes, when the disappointment is there, they drive their life past it. Why? Because they know why they're doing it. And if we can weave in the threads of our purpose in relationship to what it is that we do on a daily basis, the fact is that we will persevere through the call reluctance. We will persevere through the fear of rejection. We will persevere through any challenge that comes our way because we are driven with this purpose that drives our life on a daily basis. So remember, do not underestimate the magnitude of importance that purpose can have. And look, sometimes it can be a big purpose, some things that's driving you like, into the next solar system of greatness. But other times it's small things. Maybe, I look back on my first years of this business, and what drove me was this. I just wanted to make sure that my family was provided for. I wanted to be sure that if my wife, wanted to work, she could, but if she didn't have to. That she could stay in the home and take care of our awesome children and kids. And look, for me, that was a driving force early on in my career. But it's not the same things that drive me today. But it was enough that when I was scared to knock on the door, when I was afraid to pick up the phone, it was enough to me that made me think about what I wanted to be as a father, and it persevered me and almost leapfrogged me over the fear and the challenges of not doing my job. So again, we cannot underestimate the magnitude of importance that that purpose have? That was the first thing I wrote down on that little sticky note when I said, what is it that top producers do? The second thing I wrote down was this. I wrote down that I knew that she had a business plan. And I thought, you know what? I bet you she looks at it. And lo and behold, of course, after I wrote this down, I went to her and I said, hey, I have a question for you. Do you have a business plan? Of course, she answered, well, yes, George, of course I have a business plan. And I said, you know, what does it have in there? Well, it has my schedule, it has my plans, it has my activities, it has what I'm supposed to do every day, it has my schedule for prospecting, who I'm going to prospect, my lead follow-up, where my sources of business will come from. And it may seem so simple what I'm saying, but the fact is you would never build a home. You would never go out and build a home without a blueprint. You would not go and manufacture a major multi-million-dollar business without a plan. You would have to have a plan. So as you go through your business, I want you to think for a moment, are you moving your life today with purpose and plan and schedule? Because the thing is that those who seem to be producing at the highest level seem to clearly understand that as they move with purpose, a defined plan is in place, and they're following a schedule, life gets pretty good. But then there's another component that I wrote down. And I wrote down the fact that you have to have goals. Now think about this. Do you have a goal? Do you know the goals that you've set? Now look, there's purpose, but then there's the stepping stones of the goals. The goals are the things that lead you to be able to live out your purpose. Are you setting goals? Do you know how many appointments you should set this week? Do you know how many appointments that you need to set this year? Do you know how many listings you need to take? How many buyers you need to put under contract? Do you know clearly what it is you're supposed to be doing from your goals, your plan, your schedule, and then driving all of that with a deep sense of purpose? This gets me excited, because the fact is that those are the things that the top producers do. That's what Joan did. And so I realized that just like the recipe for the chocolate chip cookies, the fact is that if you follow that recipe and you follow a recipe that has success wrapped all around it, well, you know what? Maybe you're not selling a home every day like she did every time, but the fact is that you might be selling more than you are today. You might be doing more than you are today because you are clear on your purpose, your goals, your plan, and your schedule. All right? Now, those are the first things I wrote down. But then I started to think, well, wait a second here. How does she keep her mindset strong? Does she always remember her purpose? Does she always remember what her plan is and her schedule and the goals that she's set? Does she remember that throughout the day? And I thought, man, you know what? I realized I've seen her. She's always reading. She's always listening to something. And what I realized early on is that she was protecting her mindset, right? Her mental toughness. So ask yourself today, here we are, just a few hours still into the day. Have you read something that has empowered you? Have you listened to something that has strengthened you? Have you written something maybe in your journal, a question that empowers you to do more than you were just even days before? The fact is that our mind is what leads our mind. Our mind leads our body, and if we want the actions to be right, we have to make sure that our mind is right. Our mind is the thing that we have to control. Look, it's not an accident that Napoleon Hill wrote this book. And I'm going to emphasize here. He said these words: think and grow rich. Right? He didn't say grow rich and then you should think. No, he said think and grow rich. And what he realized, and what every great leader in the icons that he worked with, such as Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, these are the guys that he worked with and that he was shadowing and mentoring. And what he realized with these individuals is that they think, and that because they thought, they came up with ideas and solutions. They controlled their mindset, and it moved into the great wealth and the empires that each of these individuals made. So we cannot underestimate the magnitude of our mind. And I know that a top producer controls it. They empower it. They strengthen it. They do things that make it right. So I would ask you, what are you doing today to strengthen your mindset? What are you doing today to elevate to a whole different level of success? If you will do so, I can promise you your mind will lead you into the next steps, which is Then I wrote down this. I wrote down, well, gosh, you know what? She's been whooping me on listing presentations. You know, I'd go out and call her for sale by owner. She'd call the same for sale by owner. And all of a sudden what would happen is we'd show up at the appointment at different times, and guess who ended up always seeming to take the listing? Not me. I didn't. It was her who would take the listing. And she wasn't discounting her commissions. She wasn't telling the seller some ridiculous overpriced price. She was going in there and educating them and teaching them and inspiring them and taking them through a listing process that made it to where they decided to work with her instead of me or anybody else in the marketplace. And it taught me a great lesson that if I know what to say, if I know when to say it, and I know how to say it, I can win this game. You see, the fourth point really is our ability to create the right skill sets. So on these little sticky notes, I wrote down, gosh, you know what? I know that she has a powerful mindset, and that she has a mindset and a skill set that are weaving together, that when she shows up, she is a rock star. Look, you don't sell a home a day by accident. Success is not an accident. She worked her tail off to master scripts, dialogues, when to say it, how to say it, what to say, and she mastered it. And that's why I wrote that on that little sticky note. I said, what do top producers do? You know what? They've got the skill sets that are necessary. And that's one thing that she developed for certain. So, just as we review through this, let me just give you a few of these again. We've talked about purpose. We've talked about a plan, goals, a schedule. We've talked about the mindset that's necessary. We've talked about the skill sets that are necessary. But you can have all of that enthusiasm for all of those things, and guess what? Won't mean anything if you don't have the fifth component. And what I had written down was this: discipline. She did more of what she said she was going to do. You know, look, think about this. What is a person of potential? Someone who has great potential is this. If they simply did their job, would not be someone of potential. If they lived out what it is that they really could do, they wouldn't be someone of potential. They'd be that person who's like, wow, they actually are doing it. They are actually succeeding at this level. They're not a person of potential. They're actually doing it. So discipline is about the doing. Discipline is about the action. Discipline is about living out daily what you're supposed to do. Now look, whether that's the disciplines of reading and writing in your journal and listening to the right things, whether it's the discipline of visualizing and meditating, the disciplines of exercise and taking care of this great gift you have, which is your body. It's the disciplines of prospecting. It's the disciplines of lead follow-up. It's the discipline of mastering scripts and dialogues. All of these things are disciplines. I remember years ago, I remember my little daughter, well, I guess my daughter who turns 18 actually this week. I should say little. She's not little anymore. She's grown up fast. But when she was about 11 or 12 years old, I remember every single time she would have to come out to the car or we were going somewhere, I would say, Ashley, did you brush your teeth? And she would roll her eyes, look at me and go stomping back into the house. And she'd go there and she would, brush her teeth. And it's because I had to hold her accountable, right? Right? Like there's people who each hold us accountable. But accountability, I want you to think about this for a second. Accountability is from the outside, right? Accountability is from the outside, not the inside. So I want you to think about when you say, gosh, hold me accountable. It might be a coach. It might be your manager. It might be another leader. It might be a spouse, a partner, a friend. But someone's holding you accountable through that process. Well, I was holding my daughter accountable. But then when she was about 12 or 13, guess what happened? She found boys. And guess what? I didn't have to hold her accountable anymore. She brushed her teeth on her own. I didn't have to even ask her if she brushed her teeth because I knew that she knew boys existed on this planet and she was going to brush her teeth on her own. And so she got what everyone wants, what everyone is so proud of at times. And that is this: self-discipline, the ability to govern ourselves. Now look, there are times in our lives where we are self-disciplined and we do everything we're supposed to do. And there are days when we need to be mature enough, smart enough, wise enough to take a step back and go, wait a second here. I'm not doing what I know I'm supposed to do, and I've got to put people around me. I got to put circumstances and situations around me that hold me accountable from the outside. Look, some of the best years of my career in selling real estate, when I did simple things like, if I didn't prospect at a certain time with another buddy in the office, I'll buy you lunch. Or, you know what, whoever set the first appointment of the day, you know, a little contest with 3 or 4 agents, got paid $5 extra. So you got $20 for setting the first appointment. Seems like such simple stuff, but it worked. And I promise you it will work for you if you will find ways to be accountable and disciplined. Now go back to what I said, right? What do top producers do? They are accountable. They are disciplined. They do more of what they say they're going to do consistently. And if you do that, you win the game. It's just a recipe. It's not rocket science. We're not trying to put a man on the moon. We're not trying to, cure cancer. We're just simply saying if you're accountable and disciplined, you win the game. You can have all the goals, the dreams, the plans, the schedules, the mindset, the skill sets that are off the chart. But if you don't act and if you aren't disciplined, none of it works. So, many years ago, over 2 decades ago, that's what I wrote down. And there's one last component I wrote to it, and I added this over the years. And what I realized is that a top producer, someone who succeeded at a high level, does this. They add systems and strategies to their company, their team, to their infrastructure. And what I realized is that the first 5 things I just mentioned to you are all about working in the business. But this last component, systems, strategies, right, are all about working on the business. Maybe there's a technology you need to add. Maybe there's something with your lead follow-up you need to add. Maybe there's something with your sphere of influence you need to add. Maybe there's something that you just know needs to be added into the equation of your success, and you spend all your time working in the business like that, like the rat, on the wheel, and the wheel of life, and just running hard, and you're working hard, but you're not working on the business. And the key here, gang, is that you have to also work on the business, not just in it. And as you spend time working on it, whatever system or strategy that you put in place, look, you're going to do some extraordinary things. So, in wrapping this up, I just want to remind you that real estate is about building the right foundation. And I want to remind you of a couple of key things here. So often our focus point is focusing on the things that we can't control, right? We'll focus on the interest rates. We'll focus on the inventory or the lack of. We'll focus on how hard it is to get a listing. We'll focus on the unemployment. We'll focus on the politics. We'll focus on the loan programs. We'll focus on the other agent. We'll focus even on our brokerage. We'll focus on the agents around us. We'll focus on the other agents we're working with. We'll focus on, excuse me, we'll focus on everything that exists except the one thing or the few things that we can control. I want to remind you that you can control the time that you wake up. You can control the time that you go to the gym. You can control the time that you prospect. You can control the number of doors that you knock on. You can control the number of people that you speak to in a day. You can control your skill sets, what you say, when you say it, how you say it. You can control so much. Your mindset, your belief system, the decisions of your day. You can control what you listen to, right? The news that you can do nothing about, or you could listen to something that empowers you, like a daily message or what you're listening to today, that will shape you and refine you to being who you know you need to be. Gang, in the end, I am, and this sounds so strange to say this in business, but I am so unconcerned with the amount of money that you will personally earn. I have almost no concern about the number of deals that you will do on a personal basis. But what I am ultimately concerned with is who do you become in this process? And what I have found is that if you will do what I deeply believe and what this organization believes, that if you will work from the inside out, that if you will work from that component of thinking, that you will become who you need to become to earn as much money as you possibly could want to do as many transactions as you possibly could, that you will not have any concerns whatsoever if you become who you need to become. The question I have asked for nearly 2 decades of myself and others is this: who do I have to become to earn a certain amount of money? You fill in the blank. Who do you have to become? Are you okay with the amount of money you're earning today? And if you are, congratulations. Are you okay with the amount of business that you transact? Congratulations if you do. But I believe you're on this call. You're listening to me live, right? You're on it because you want to become more. You want to earn more. And we can't underestimate the magnitude of who we spend our time with is who we become. And we can't underestimate that what we do on a daily basis of our becoming is the byproduct of the business that we do. So don't underestimate the magnitude of this. Don't underestimate that you have the requirement, the stewardship, the responsibility to become more. It's who you're supposed to become. As I always say in every daily message, I think I say it almost every time. There's nothing you cannot learn, and there's nothing you cannot do. So if that's the case, you want to sell a home every day? Just follow the recipe. You want to sell 50 homes a year? Follow the recipe. You want to sell 25 homes a year? There's just a recipe for it. There's nothing you can't do. But you've got to make sure that you build the foundation so that you can become who you need to become. Look, there are no shortcuts. There is not going to be an easy way. I was talking to my good friend Annette Gramps in the room here, and she said, you know what? She goes, I love this concept. She said, you know what? It takes 10,000 hours to become a master at anything. Right? So if you took 1,000 hours a year of just prospecting, you did that for a decade, could 10 years later you earn more money than you ever thought possible? The answer is, I'm certain of it. Because you will have mastered your ability to prospect. Right? The mastery of repetitious boredom is what creates the masters. How many times do you think Michael Jordan was bored at taking shots at basketball? How many times do you think the most decorated gold medalist like Michael Phelps, how many times do you think he was sick and tired and bored of jumping into the pool every day? All right, now for sure we're closing out, but here's the last statement I'm going to make. All right? One more thing for those of you who know, right? One more thing, right? Look, here's the deal. Stop living your life based on how you feel. That's the great tragedy of great leaders, or almost great leaders. They simply just do what they feel like doing. And here's the deal. Almost every day you won't feel like prospecting. Every day you won't feel like practicing. Every day you probably won't feel like getting up early. But if you will live your life based on what you know you're supposed to do, following the strategies of this business that you've outlined, your plan and your purpose, if you follow it, then it won't even matter. What won't matter is how you feel, because you'll do your job anyways. So, in closing up, I want to thank Jason and Annette for getting me set up. I love the fact that I have the chance to communicate. I'm seeing names pop across the screen, and so grateful that you're listening and taking the time out of your day to do so. Gang, we've got some great things to do. Some extraordinary success is ahead for you. And I would just challenge you with, again, the idea. Success is not an accident. And you can have it every day, all day, if you choose to, because of a decision that you make for yourself. So with that, anything else, Annette or Jason? Anything else? Okay, gang, you guys are awesome. Have an extraordinary day. This is being recorded, so if there's anything I shared with you that you want to go back and listen to again, do so. But build the foundation of your life. Do the things that you need to be doing so that you can win this game. You owe it to yourself, to your family, to those that support you, to become or to be your very, very best. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.